Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to the Steelers Preview Podcast. The Steelers were not previewing a game this week, but this preview podcast never stops no matter what. And I'm Jeff Hartman, joined as always by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's up, man? How's it going?
Hey, it's going. It's nice and early. We're going to have we'll each individually have some family time later this evening. Mm-hmm. Hopefully people can still join us at this early time. If not, welcome to the replay. And let's talk about the Steelers playing absolutely nobody this weekend.
They are favored by 3 points in that matchup. So, Bryan Davis, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It doesn't matter what time of day we go. I tell you what, the eyes are on this channel because we have some of the greatest followers in sports. And I love this Steel Curtain Network universe. So thank you so much, family.
I did put out there earlier today that we were going to be starting at 4 o'clock Eastern time. We started right on the dot. I said, if you don't like it, you can put it in the suggestion box. And it was an image of the suggestion box being a shredder. So there you go. It is Halloween, gentlemen. Happy Halloween. I hope everyone has a safe Halloween out there if you celebrate it. Let's talk about the Steelers, though. You know, I tried to stick with the Halloween theme for this show. And I was like, okay, this kind of all riffs off of the Steel City Insider podcast. Jim Wexell and Jeremy Ritz are kind enough to be a part of our network every Wednesday, most Wednesdays. And they recently had Doug Whaley on. Doug Whaley was former, I think he worked for the Steelers under Kevin Colbert, did he not? Yeah. And then he became the general manager of the Buffalo Bills for a short stint. And he comes back and does a lot of media. He's on 93 in the Fan and things like that. Boy, he was really trying to poo-poo the Steelers 6-2 start. And I was like, you know, he brings up some good points, very valid. Some of the points I don't think he was on point with when he talked about the Steelers' poorest rush defense as if they're giving up like some of the worst yardage. They had a bad game against the Giants.
One game.
They only averaged 81 yards per game leading up to that game. But nonetheless, I was like, you know what? Let's do the Halloween crossover here. And let's say, are there skeletons in the Steelers' closet? Meaning, are there issues with this team that we're really not talking about because, well, they're still winning. They're 6-2. Everything's fine. Everything's honky-dory, as they used to say. Dave, I'm going to throw it to you first. If there's anything that concerns you about this team, what is it?
Okay. It kind of goes into when I was looking at the different takes on the Steelers we were looking at in Pittsburgh Standard Time this morning. And the last one, which was actually Greg liked it so much, I finally had to take credit because it was my take. I saved mine for the end. And that is that the Steelers, the biggest thing that the Steelers need to improve on is merely consistency. That they've shown greatness in a lot of different areas, that if they can just do that more often. So really the biggest concern is, to me, inconsistency. Because if you're not getting consistency, it's kind of like the whole light darkness thing, you know. Yep. What is darkness? It's the absence of light. What is the absence of consistency? Inconsistency. So to me, that's kind of what you get early in games when the offense takes a little bit to get going. So I like to look at the best of what we see from the Steelers is who they are. And any other time, they're just not living up to it, so that they need to get to that level. Maybe that's the wrong way for me to look at it, but that's the way I do it. When I see something great from the Steelers, I'm like, that's who this team is. That's who this team is. So that's why I kind of go that way. I'm going to go with they can be more. If they aren't going to be consistent, it's going to be a problem.
Well, let me ask a clarifying question before I throw it over to Bryan and get his take.
Okay.
Is there an area of this team, and I'm not talking about offense, defense necessarily, but is there an area on either side of the football that you think needs that consistency more than others?
Okay. There's several. The run defense is an obvious one because you can't say they're consistent when they had their worst game of the season from a number standpoint of what they gave up this past week. I wouldn't call that who they are. I would call that an inconsistency because what is it? They gave up not even 111 yards total the previous two games combined. So it's something like that. That my number might be off a little bit, but So I would say that one. I would say consistency I think sometimes in defensive philosophy with how they can do that soft zone. Or I talked about my pet peeve earlier this morning about, 3rd and 12, you're willing to give up 10 because you didn't give up the first down. Well, then what do you do when they go forward on 4th down? Then you gotta defend 2 yards. If you have more of that killer mentality, or what don't let them behind us if they're going to move down the field. We'll let them move down the field in the zones and things like that. Offense, I think it's really hard to say what that consistency is right now. It's a harder answer because even though 2 is now a pattern, it's still just 2 games with Russell Wilson. So it's kind of hard to take the first 6 games and the last 2 games and put them all together. So I would say, because they did a really nice job in the red zone the first game, not so much the second game under Russell Wilson. So that's something that I could say would be more of a consistency.
All right, Brian Davis, you can chime in on Dave's, or if you have nothing to add to that, you can say your own skeleton that might be in the Steelers closet.
No, I agree with everything that Dave said. I'm going to go to talk about some things that I'm concerned with. I thought Wex and Jeremy Ritz did a great job with the interview with talking to Doug Whaley. I thought Doug Whaley can't pronounce names. Saquon Barkley, Saquon Barkley.
Well, hey, some of us on the Steel Curtain Network struggle with names, so we can't. I'm not saying me or anyone on this panel, but there are some.
I admit that. Well, yeah, I admit I do. I mean, look at me during the draft butchering names of people.
The draft is one thing. We're just getting to know these players.
In the live chat, I'll
there's
butcher their
people
names
now that still can't say Fautanu on our network. So, anyways, I digress.
It's Saquon Barkley, though. Come on. Now, I kind of felt like it was, those kind of people that play fantasy football, but they look at it as like they're playing the stock market and they just follow trends and do all this, and they're not even fans of football. Yeah. This almost felt like it to me because and I'm not trying to poo-poo a guy who probably knows a lot more than I do, but it's what I talk about the national media all the time, looking from afar and not knowing the ins and outs. And it felt like Doug Whaley did not know the ins and outs of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I really felt that way listening to this interview. And
Brian, you know more about the Steelers than he does. By far, hands down. You know more than he does. You are spot on in that. I just wanted to add that because you're not
also remember, he's someone who can still be a little bit jaded because
he didn't get the job.
Omar got the job. And
exactly.
Andy Weidel got the assistant job. He was out in the cold.
Yeah. Wex even called him out. Wex even called him out. Dave talked about consistency. I didn't think he was consistent with this interview. So I kind of took it took it with a grain of salt. Now there are a couple things that I did agree with that he said. So it wasn't everything that I disagreed. It was towards the end of it. But when he was talking about, it doesn't matter. Don't go and get a wide receiver. It doesn't matter because it's not going to help you this year, whoever it is. And that is completely anti trying to win this season. Yeah. And so I kind of
so the Chiefs are foolish for the moves they've made because that's not going to help them this season.
No, he was saying that if you're the Chiefs,
to him.
Yeah. If you're the Chiefs, go do it because you can win a Super Bowl. The Steelers don't even bother trying, and that's what I got out of it. So I was listening to it, and I was glad I read Jeff's Slack message saying, not that I necessarily agree with everything he said, but I think we should talk about it. And he's absolutely correct. Now, when I go ahead and think about the things that I worry about with the Steelers, it's really not run defense. It's not, because that's just like we talk about a sample size. That's a small sample size. We've been happy with the run defense most of the way here. I know against the Colts, there were some extra yards that we felt that they were falling backwards on. But for the most part, Cam Hayward and that entire gang up front is pretty darn good. So I'm not disagreeing whatsoever with it. One thing that I did agree with Whaley on was the Beanie Bishop assessment, because he was right on when he said, he caught some tip balls. So don't crown him yet. He didn't say don't crown him, but basically don't crown him and give Cam and Beanie a chance to battle it out. Had no problem with that. But when I'm looking at the Steelers, there's some things that I think are still a little bit of a problem. It's not playing to the sticks. On offense, they give up the sticks on third down. On defense, they give up the sticks on third down, and they don't play past the sticks when they're passing the ball. They expect yak, and you're not always going to get yards after the catch or as many as you think you need. We saw situations where I'm still wary of the short passing game a lot, especially third down, and hoping a guy could leg it out. And that's what concerns me. Once again, the running defense does not concern me. I'm always going to be concerned with the lack of depth at wide receiver. Do I think that they can go ahead and win? Go forward with Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson? Yes, I can. But I go back to the Devontae Adams game where they were gushing over him on Sunday Night Football, and they kept on saying Collinsworth, which I'm one of the few people that enjoy Collinsworth. I actually like him. And so when Collinsworth was saying, even though he has 30 yards, this is what Devontae Adams does. He gets everybody else open for you. And if you can get somebody else in there that is going to get other people open, especially George Pickens, when we see him one-on-one, he's magic. So when you have one other person in there that could probably stretch things, that's a good thing. I think Slayton could be a guy like that. I don't think Cortland Sutton's coming because the Broncos are coming on. Yeah. But I think Mike Williams can actually help this team too. One extra body in there can help you out. But the depth scares me, and the depth of the offensive line scares me. I think if you do anything...
Ryan, you don't have to dump everything out here at once. You've hit like 5 topics.
He's taking the Halloween bag and just dumping all the candy on the table.
All the candy on the table at once.
All right.
Like, hold on.
Well, depth is one thing.
I want to talk about the first one.
Okay.
Because all these are great, but we can discuss them a little bit too.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, no, I was going to ask, like you said about the third down, like throwing short. That does not that it never happens. That is not happening to the level this year as it has in the past. I can only think of one for Monday night when it was a third and long and they dumped it off to Jalen Warren and he got it.
Yeah.
There was one in the youth too.
Did they do? Yeah. I'm not saying there couldn't have been another one, but sometimes I've said it before. Teams do defend the sticks. Like the Steelers try to defend the 6. That's why you can get it over top of those defenders, or you can dump it off in front of them. But that was a huge problem under the previous coordinator. It's not that it's never there, but that one's calmed down a little bit. Now, wide receiver, you're right. The depth is the scary thing now. Could the Steelers get by with what they have right now? It's not, they could, but you think about adding that other piece and how it could be better, and why would you not want to make it better, which makes sense. But the depth is scary. Sorry, and I don't want to keep Jeff from being able to chime in on anything.
Oh, no, you guys are fine.
I already did. I kept everybody from chiming in, so I apologize.
All right. Did you have anything else, Brian, that you wanted to say?
You were getting ready to say offensive line.
Just the offensive line depth is the same thing with me, because Broderick Jones is still, he's had some games where he wasn't noticeably bad, but I'm almost at the point where don't get all upset when they try to extend Dan Moore Jr. next year, if that's the way it's going. But even if Broderick goes down, you don't have a lot in the cupboard because there's so many guys there that are on the shelf.
Yeah. For me, the biggest skeleton in the closet, it's kind of like when you go to the haunted house or whatever it is, and it's just a black room, and it's the unknown. That's the scary part, is that you just don't know what's in there. And Dave, you said it, and I've cited you a million times since you said it in articles at steelcurtainnetwork.com. Go give that website a check. And it's the two becomes a pattern, but we still haven't really seen it in the long term. So when you've seen Russell Wilson and what the offense looks like with him, it's tantalizing. Why? And that's something I was talking with yesterday. My wife was just an innocent bystander to my conversation with another Steeler fan. And he's like, oh my gosh, what's happening with Najee? Why is he doing so well? I said, it's pretty simple. Safeties can't come into the box. If you bring a safety into the box against the Steelers with Russell Wilson, he's going to diagnose it and he's going to put the ball over the head, whether it's to Van Jefferson, we've seen that. Calvin Austin, we've seen that. George Pickens, we know we've seen that. And so it's giving them favorable numbers at the line of scrimmage in terms of who's being blocked, and Najee actually has some space. I do think Najee's running more decisive anyways, but that's neither here nor there. And so we've seen this, but now all of a sudden teams are going to have some tape on Russell Wilson. And what is the pivot going to be? What is that going to look like when all of a sudden someone understands and tries to stymie something the Steelers have done well? And it's not me being a Debbie Downer. This is something I posed on Twitter the other day when I said, what will it take for you as a fan to believe in this team? And because we've all been jaded for a while, let's be honest. Like, we've been jaded since Ben Roethlisberger retired because it hasn't been the same. And what we were watching, A, wasn't enjoyable, and B, we knew wasn't a contender. Even those three of us on this panel, in our heart of hearts, there's nothing but black and gold. But we knew we weren't watching a team that could actually compete for a Super Bowl. I know I did. Maybe I can't speak.
No,
Dave.
sorry.
The man's making a good point, Dave.
How dare you say this team isn't competing for a Super Bowl every freaking year and every freaking week? Sorry.
Is it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Yes.
No. Not
Germans.
Forget it. He's rolling.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm good at myself.
So for me, I asked this question, and a lot of people said that they're not going to fully believe until they win a playoff game. And I get that. I totally get that. But I can say for the first time in a long time that what I'm seeing leading into the bye is a team that could actually contend. That we're watching a team that could go on a run. And so that then brings into all these other questions. Like, Bryan, you're bringing up the depth at wide receiver. If you are a team that considers yourself a contender, go get a guy. Go get a guy. Don't just have it be an Adam Thielen type if he's not going to move the needle and it's not going to lead to more wins. If you think your offensive line depth sucks and Dylan Cook being activated off the 21-day window isn't enough, go get a guy. Look at what the Minnesota Vikings are doing. Go get a guy. And so the unknown of, will this team still look this way when the competition gets better? I do want to say that, with preface that with the Steelers defense they're about to face are much easier. I think you said this, Dave, this morning on Pittsburgh Standard Time. The defenses that they faced in the first half were tough. The defenses they face in the second half are not as bad. They actually flips. The offenses that the Steelers defense are about to face are much more dangerous, we'll put it that way, than what they saw in the first half. So for me, I'm going to say that I just think it's the unknown. That is the biggest skeleton in the closet for me. I hope and pray Russell Wilson's offense and that what they're figuring out, because I like the tempo they had against the Giants. I thought that could do some damage to some teams in the second half. But I digress. I'll stop. Dave, go ahead.
Oh no! You brought up so many good points. I don't know. I don't know where else to add on. But I said sacrilege about that. The Steelers, they weren't really true Super Bowl contenders, because when you're sitting in the midst of it, what are you supposed to say? That this, the quarterback situation isn't good enough. Now that you're out of it, you can look back and say how bad
absolutely.
It is. But in the moment, you've got to believe that you're going to get together.
You're
going to make that run. That's what we do. That's what we are, Steelers fans. But now you're just at a different spot. You said about not having a safety in the box. Well, the other thing you got to remember about that is what happens as you get closer to the touchdown zone. When you get down in that red zone, where that safety's lining up is closer to the box anyway. And that might be part of what the Steelers are needing to work through. But to me, everything that you said there, Jeff, and the fear of the unknown and this and that and the other, you said about getting tape on Russell Wilson. That fear is real in Steeler fans, because it's that within 5-year mentality that you have. We were here for the 2020 season. And the Steelers are on a roll, winning 11 straight games. And then all it took was teams figuring out, all right, they struggle with this. We saw how that fell off a cliff. We did when other teams figured it out. So at any given moment, you got to say, what are they going to do to figure it out? So the Steelers can't be satisfied with what they're doing. They constantly have to be playing chess, not checkers. You constantly have to be looking 4 moves ahead and realizing, hey, I might be sacrificing my queen, but in doing so, you're in checkmate. So those are the kind of things that they have to, next level thought processes that you have to have that knowing that teams are going to adjust. And the Steelers have been adjusting so well in game. So, but these are all valid concerns.
Yeah. Bryan, did you want to chime in on anything?
You have to
you got to unmute yourself
too,
first. Big fine. Sean, hey, Big G's in the live chat. He's going to find your rear end.
I would give Big G, Sean Gurley, anything. I have great respect for him, and I deserve that. Fine. I like everything that y'all said. And Jeff, I agree with you. I agree with the consistency on Dave's part. Jeff, the unknown on your part. But we all come talking about moving the needle. I think a guy like Darius Slayton does move the needle, and I'll take anybody. I'll take anybody in there that could do something. If we needed to, I don't know what the podcast awards are, but if we need to win a potty and you had to go ahead and trade me for Rich Eisen, go do it. Trade me for Rich Eisen. If you want to get that body,
write that down at the end of the season. We're giving away the potty awards.
That's all I've got.
The first annual potty awards, hosted by Fan First Sports Network. All right. Here's what I want to do. I want to take a break. When we come back from the break, I want to flip the script. And it's natural. And I found myself driving yesterday listening to the Steel City Insider, and I started to think like, man, I was feeling really great about this team. And now all of a sudden I'm like, these doubts start creeping into your brain. I want to flip the script, and I want to talk about why there should be reasons for optimism in the second half. And we're also going to have some fun looking at our early season predictions from when we had the schedule release that we did on this show. And we'll do some trivia and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. For those watching live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. For audio side, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, welcome back to the Potty Show. And this is...
My wheels are spinning now, Jeff. I'm having everybody submit their best clips now, and we're gonna.
Bryan, like anyone's going to top what your closing thoughts were last week.
What was that? The felt up.
All I know is that I reacted pretty bad to it.
Was that what it was? The felt up final thoughts or something like that?
Yeah,
Full frontal. I don't know. Anyways, it had an F in there. I know that.
It was felt up.
All right, let's talk about some positive stuff. Let's give reasons why we think the Steelers are actually going to do something that a lot of people thought they weren't going to be capable of. And what is that? They have a really tough stretch of games coming up. 9 games to finish out the regular season. They've got games against Philadelphia, Kansas City, Washington, which a lot of us said that's an easy win, is not going to be so easy on the road. All 6 divisional games still on the docket. You guys can go in any direction. Dave, I'll let you go first. Give a reason for optimism for Steeler fans out there.
Okay. My biggest reason for optimism is this. People want to talk about adding a wide receiver. I mean, you could go big. A lot of the big names aren't, was Cooper Kupp even still an option? Some of these other things, teams are really waiting until the last minute. If a team is getting to, I was even just had said in our Slack channel to Jeremy Betts, they're like, oh, well, with Lazard going on IR, does that mean Mike Williams isn't going to be available for the Jets? I'm like, the Jets play tonight, don't they? If they drop to 2-7, you have to win out all the rest of your games and still not possibly get the right tiebreakers to make the playoffs. So I think the biggest thing for those are going to be where teams stand after this week's of games. But anyway, getting a wide receiver would be really positive, but I don't know if it's going to be as much as, there wasn't a huge fall off. I think getting Zach Frazier coming back out of the bye could be a really big deal. That's why I so wish that Fautanu wasn't out for what, quote unquote, the regular season, because getting him back would be a really big deal and would help with that depth problem that Bryan was talking about on the offensive line. So there's reason, if the Steelers ran the ball well for 2 games without their center that's already being talked about as a rookie as Pro Bowl potential for this season, even because he was playing that well. If he can come back and step right in with the way he was playing, even if it takes a game to warm back up to it, that's just going to make things even better. The whole idea of when the Steelers are lining up, regardless of their personnel, their formation, all those other things, I don't know what play's coming anymore. I don't. Especially the last 2 weeks, every Steeler fan should be ecstatic that you can't call out with 80 to 90% accuracy what play is coming every time the Steelers come to the line on offense.
Yeah.
Also the Steelers' biggest, I'm going to do Bryan. I'm going to put all the candy on the table. Their biggest test ahead that Jeff talked about is how we talked about how it flips. You're going up against some really more dynamic offenses, more than dynamic defenses, and that's still going to be for Steelers strength on strength. Yes, the defense has had some inconsistencies at times. There's more cavalry arriving with Cam Sutton. Whether you think he should be playing instead of Beanie Bishop or not doesn't matter. It's going to be more help. Is Corey Trice going to make it back in the second half? That could be more help. Things of that nature. But that's that's the heart and soul of this team still. That's still who the team calls on when it comes to it. So when you're going up against those good offenses, you're going to be going strength on strength. So, does it mean they'll win them all? No. Does it mean they'll win any of them? Well, hopefully they win a few, at least. But you can say where the Steelers have invested is to try to stop these offenses, and that's what they're going to be doing.
Bryan, anything you want to add to that?
I can't. I think it's perfect.
All right. What is the reason for you then, Bryan, that you want to give optimism to Steelers fans out there?
I'm going to give optimism, not just Frazier coming back, but Herbig coming back too. Mm-hmm. And it looks like he's coming back as well. Adding, look, we talked about it just a little bit earlier, but adding Cam Sutton into that mix, he does not have to take over for Beanie Bishop. He just has to add competition, and the one that elevates Beanie's game, but it also elevates the Steelers to have that other guy in there too. You fresh. Herbig makes you fresh, makes Highsmith fresher, because you could bring a guy like that in. We talked about last week how Alex Highsmith was just half a step too slow to, he still had 2 sacks. My gosh, he could have had 4. That's the kind of
6
pressure.
Quarterback hits. Yeah.
That was the pressure he was getting. I didn't realize 6. Wow.
Yeah.
And Herbig's fast. So you have the potential, and who knows what kind of packages they have. What happens if both of those guys are on the field at the same time in some kind of cool package? I think it's happened before. I don't know, but I'm optimistic because the Russell Wilson train, everybody thinks that it's going to fall off, and it very well could, but this is the first time in a long time that we've been able to sit back and feel like the offense has the chance to score on any drive. And it kind of feels that way. And you're finding out who the real Arthur Smith is, because Arthur Smith has his true pieces in play right now. And even if his true piece is Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson next to George Pickens, even though those are his true pieces, he knows how to use those guys too. So I feel like this is coming about. Now, if we're looking on the pessimistic side, a lot of people are talking about schedule. I don't care about schedule. I think I go back to 2008, where they had the toughest schedule in the league, in the first time since 1974 that they had a horribly tough schedule. They won the Super Bowl that year, but they had murderers row the second half, and they cruised right through it.
Yeah. I want to say here are some names of players that the Steelers could get back starting in week 10. Okay, so you already mentioned Nick Herbig. You already mentioned Zach Frazier. Cordero Patterson, I would bet my house is going to be back in the lineup. You talk about Corey Trice will be able to have his window started. This bye week makes it really interesting. He's been out for 4 games. I have a feeling he probably would have started his window this week. So I'll be curious if they start that next week and how he does in practice would maybe have him back sooner than normal. I don't know. Tyler Matakevich will be back. He's a good special team player as well. I mean, Cam Sutton's going to be back because he's off the suspended list. Like, they're getting some reinforcements, whether it's in week 10 or shortly after, that could be difference makers for this team. But Dave, you said it, and I want to bring this up. And this is just my own gut feeling. You talked about it, and I mentioned it earlier as well. The defenses that they're going to face are not as good. The offenses that they're going to face are better. That means you might have to win a couple games where you outscore your opponent. That's just the fact of the matter. It's the nature of modern NFL. For the first time in a long time, I feel like the Steelers could actually win some of those games. Do you all disagree?
No, I think you're spot on.
I mean, they're averaging 23.4 points per game right now. And so there was a time where, oh my gosh, the 23 points per game. Are you serious? What kind of fantasy world is this? They were averaging 17 and 18 points per game the last 2 years. And so I look at this and I say, I think the Steelers are better suited to, if the defense has some failures, that the offense can actually pick them up. No, I understand the red zone issues are a season-long issue. Some of those red zone numbers that we saw early in the season were Justin Fields using his athleticism and legs to create. And maybe the answer, and I don't know, I'm going to get you guys' take on this. Maybe the answer for some of their red zone woes are actually to use Justin Fields more in that area. I don't know if Russell Wilson will be on board with that, but you saw in the first, and I thought about this when I was doing my notes for Let's Ride Tomorrow. I was like, man, the red zone numbers aren't as good, but Justin Fields, that's where he kind of excelled, all those rushing touchdowns. Would you all do that? Dave, would you do that? Would you have Justin Fields come in the red zone and actually be the quarterback?
Yes. I mean, not every time, not all the time.
Yeah.
But as an option, I've even said, I can't remember if it was this show or whichever show it was. There's no harm in a play on a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 2, and you're just going to hand it off to Najee flying up the middle. If you bring in Justin Fields, now, of course, if they fumble a snap, you're going to be like, what are you doing? But, you know, if you want to live in your fears. But if you bring in Justin Fields, instantly you might have outside linebackers lining up a little bit further outside. We got to guard against the bootleg. We've got to do that. We got to do that. You know, anything you can do to get your opponent off kilter, you do it. And that's why some people are like, I don't like the whole idea of Justin Fields. No, if that's what it takes for the team to have the most success. And that's also why I know I'm going to expand a little bit on something Bryan said about getting some of these other guys back to the defense. You mentioned Herbig. Imagine that defense with all those options. You have a 3rd outside linebacker in Herbig. You can play 3 on the field. You have 3 inside linebackers. You could somehow figure out a way to put all 3 of them out there at the same time. You've got B.D. Bishop and Cam Sutton and DeMonte KZ and possibly even Corey Trice as guys that aren't actually base defense starters. You can use them in such a variety of different ways that the opponent doesn't know what they're looking at. The more options you have with players, the more you're giving your opponent something that they aren't sure what they're seeing. I think Justin Fields could give that on the offense. And I also think just using different personnel packages has done that. They're doing that some with Darnell Washington as well, as a guy that's such a good blocker that all of a sudden, next thing you know, boom, he's going for a 29-yard reception. Things of that nature, where especially the more options you have with players, the more the variety of looks that you can give people, offensive, defensively. But back to the Justin Fields thing, that's why I would do that, because you have a chance for that exact kind of thing.
Bryan, what say you about the Fields operation in the red zone?
Not only do I do that, I even want to see a play where you've got two quarterbacks back there lined up and you don't know who's going to get the snap.
I mean, I'm not asking for that, but I wouldn't complain.
I think one time, I think that would be so cool. I would love to see that maybe on a 2-point conversion or something. I mean, confuse the hell out of the other team. Sure, Dave's right when you say go ahead and bring it out so you don't know what's going to happen. And that's exactly what they can do. We've seen this before. Remember Cordell Stewart. He was a quarterback. Now, I'm not saying make Justin Fields a wide receiver. Not saying that whatsoever. But there were so many times in 1995 when all of a sudden Neil O'Donnell was either left on the sidelines or lined up at wide receiver or did whatever. And then there's Cordell taking the snap back there. And all of a sudden defenses are like, what the hell do we do? Because they did not know what was going to happen. That's why he became Slash. He was doing it all. He was punting. He was doing all this kind of stuff. When you have a weapon like Justin Fields, you get creative and you use it. You might get too cute and it doesn't work and everybody wants you to throw it out. But seriously, what if it works 9 times out of 10? You're going to take it. So
all we're going to do is hear about the one time it doesn't.
You're right, but don't keep a playmaker on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And I think they've had plans for this all along. One of the smartest things that Mike Tomlin did, though, was to not bring Justin Fields in that first game, because that would undermine Russell Wilson.
Yes, I agree.
Russell Wilson does not have a problem with you bringing him in, but especially if you brought him in that first half, people would have booed Russell Wilson even more. It would have been a mess. So he was smart.
Not to do that. You're exactly right.
We never know the answer to this, but I'm going to tell you, in my heart of hearts and gut of guts, I'm thinking the last week you were going to see Justin Fields in some way against the New York Football Giants, but he was emergency quarterback. I think going forward, you're going to see some packages. They've already been intimating that there's going to be Justin Fields packages. Russell Wilson is not the selfish guy you think he is. And if he is, he's the best actor around.
Yeah.
He's the biggest con artist around if he is. Because right now, he's playing the part. He's kissing babies. He could run for office. He could do whatever right now in Pittsburgh. And he is the guy. Didn't take long for him to get a sandwich named after him. So all I'm saying is that if he wants to win and you think he wants to win, then that's those theatrics on the sidelines aren't theatrics. It's real. It's genuine. And that's Russ.
Dave, what do you want to say?
Yeah. And honestly, you don't have to do it a lot. It could be 1 snap a game. It could be 4 snaps a game. I would love nothing more for coming out of the bye before the Steelers have to take on that putrid purple team in Washington for just 1 snap. Line up Justin Fields as a wide receiver and just run the ball up the middle. Make him think about it. Because Jeff, I want to come back with one final thing about the ultimate question you had in the second half of something to give hope.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tomlin plays his cards close to the vest. Jeff says that all the time.
Yes.
Get excited, Steeler fans, because the Steelers haven't played a divisional game. What that means is, what do the Steelers have in their arsenal, and what are they willing to do that they simply haven't wanted to show yet? Think about that, and that's a reason to get excited about the team.
The last thing I'm going to say about the Justin Fields potential offensive foot package, is when you had the Wildcat, and I don't mean to bring up post-traumatic stress disorder between you and Bryan when your cuddling session back in 2019 or whatever year it was. I just want to say that Justin Fields is the epitome of what you would want as that kind of guy, except he can also throw the ball. So who was the running back? We're getting breaking news here. Hold on. What's going on?
Yeah, this is big.
Yeah. This is
jump in. We got to break this.
Okay. So from Alan Saunders, a friend of the show, Steelers now. And he says the Steelers have waived offensive tackle Dylan Cook and re-signed outside linebacker Ade, however you say his last name.
Adi Ogundeji.
There you go. They've re-signed him to the practice squad. Very surprised the team is moving on from Cook, who showed promise as an offensive tackle prospect. That's odd because they just went through the window to get that.
Yeah.
Surprised.
I don't know. That
But
doesn't make much sense.
The only thing would be, is it one of those had the injury, was never quite the same? I mean, that's what happened with Zach Banner.
Well, but that opens up a roster spot, correct?
Well, they had another roster spot already because they had cleared 2, brought back Cook.
But now they waived him, but they signed the other guy to the practice squad.
Well, to the practice. Oh, that was to the practice squad.
Yeah, so that's 2 now.
So they have 2 openings. That's the Steelers PR department. No, and it's not just Mount Saunders. The Steelers PR department announced it, so it happened. Wow.
So Matakevich will be 1 to fill, correct? Because he'll probably be back. So that still leaves 1 other roster spot.
Well, because they were having 10 offensive linemen.
Yeah.
When you brought him back. My thing is, are they doing it at this point of the week because teams don't want to mess with their 53-man roster on at this late on with only 1 practice day left going in, that they think it's the easiest way to get them to the practice squad? Is there some? I mean, I'm not saying that's what they're doing. I'm just saying I'm trying to make sense of it.
This will be interesting. Okay.
Because I mean, I know Jim Wexell was big on him. I know Nick Faribault was big on him. Even Alan Saunders was big on Cook. Yeah.
All right. This is a good breaking point in terms of going into our next topic, which taking a look, and we'll keep you up to date on that as we hear anything. Let's take a look back at Dave. You have our predictions from back when the schedule was released?
I do somewhere here. I got to find them. But I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And that's official with the Steelers, that Dylan Cook being made.
That's just, it is a little bit surprising.
Yeah. Bryan?
Yeah, my mouth dropped. And you can see Dave and I were distracted.
Yeah, I was talking about how Justin Fields would be the perfect Wildcat player because he could actually throw the ball. So right when they put him out there, if he's by himself and you're thinking, Justin Fields gets the football, he takes a step in, linebackers suck in. Next thing you know, you're hitting Pat Freiermuth or someone over the top. I think there's a world of options there, just to finish my thought. Dave, did you find it?
Oh, yeah, I got it.
All right. How did we do in the first half?
All right. What is the Steelers' current record?
6-2.
2 of the 3 of us had the Steelers at 6-2.
Did I have them at 7-1?
Jeff had them at 7-1.
That's what I thought.
And one of us predicted the loss to the Colts.
I think that was you, Dave.
Yeah, that was me because that was the week 4 thing.
Okay.
None of us predicted the loss to the Cowboys.
Did I say
Jeff
the Jets?
and I both had losses to the Raiders after coming off the win over the Cowboys is a bit of a letdown.
So who did not have a loss to the Raiders?
You did not. Bryan was the only one who picked the Steelers.
The Raiders did. Oh my God.
See, I told you.
He tried to hide his true fandom.
True black and gold, baby.
Bryan's predicted losses were the Chargers and the Jets. Mine were the Colts and the Raiders. And Jeff only had 1 loss predicted. It was the Raiders.
Yeah. All right. Now, what do we have coming up in terms of our predictions after the break?
Okay. You want for the rest of the season?
Just get totals.
Yeah. Jeff had the Steelers finishing out over the last 9 games at 6-3.
Nice.
Bryan had them finishing out at 6-3. And I had them finishing out at 5-4.
Yikes.
But even at 5-4, that puts them at
it's 11-6 for yours.
11-6.
Yeah, I'll take 12-5, 11-6.
Yeah. But really, well, we all had them winning against Washington. We know that's not what is, but the Steelers coming out of a bye typically is a good thing. But as we know, At times, the Steelers do things that they typically do, like that Week 4 letdown game. At other times, they don't, because there's just so much different, especially quarterback and things of that nature. But all three of us had them winning the next two games coming out of the bye. We all three had them losing to Cleveland on Thursday night because it was a Thursday after facing the Ravens. Yeah. I know Cleveland isn't great, but you also got to look at that. They get to host that game, and Cleveland, I don't know who they're coming off of. But one thing I want to say about the schedule is this. I know a lot of people, and I've mentioned this on Pittsburgh Standard Time, a lot of people are looking ahead at that Christmas Day game. I don't want to wish it away because I love the time leading up to Christmas starting basically tomorrow.
That's right.
But both of these teams could look completely different by that time. So much so, I'm going to say this. The Pittsburgh Steelers are probably wisely already preparing for the Washington Commanders. They have a game this weekend. They could look completely different that by the time the Steelers face them. That's the nature of the NFL. You can't even bank on right now that the Commanders are going to be the same team come next Tuesday. It's just how it is.
Which, by the way, the Steelers are getting 1.5 in the early spread for Week 10 at Washington.
Good.
So they're the early
That's
underdogs.
Good to note now. We'll see how that changes after what. Who does Washington? I'm trying to remember.
Giants.
Before.
They got New York.
They played the Giants.
The Giants.
Oh, at New York, that's when the Giants are terrible when they're at home. The Giants should have beat them in Washington if their kicker didn't get hurt.
And I want to go ahead and make a comment and ask you guys a question. Do you feel that Hail Mary helps the Steelers? Actually, I really think it does. Having the Commanders win on that Hail Mary, I think it adds a lot of confidence to this team where they had a game that they lost, and Hail Mary, most of the percentage rate on those are so low, and they completed it, and it's nothing but luck. Yeah. Is really what that is. That's not a skill play. It's a luck play. I mean, you have
that's
to,
as much as the defense screwing up. It is.
I was going to say that's a defensive letdown play. Is what that is.
So I'm wondering if that actually helps the Steelers in 2 weeks as well.
Do you guys mind if I answer a quick question?
No, it's pretty simple. Go ahead.
Okay, Mean Green wants to know the last season the Steelers won 12 to 13 games in a season. They won 12 games in 2020. They won 13 games in 2017.
2017, yeah. There you go. I was looking at a little taste of my Let's Ride podcast for tomorrow. I did a wish list because I'm like Dave. Tomorrow starts Christmas. We celebrate Christmas from November 1st until December 25th, and there's a 1-day break at Thanksgiving. And so,
what? Did you stop at December 25th?
Yeah, I actually do.
It goes to January 2nd.
Yep, January 2nd in my house.
Anyways, I looked at the division, and I said if the Steelers, my wish list that I did for the Steelers second half, I said a 4-2 record in the division. That's my wish. Like 4-2 or better, but that means they have to sweep a team. And I looked at the schedule, and I was like, okay, which team in the division will they sweep? Now I chose mine. But I want to know what you all think, Dave.
I chose mine at the beginning when we got this.
Yeah, but I didn't look at it the same way then as I did now. But go ahead.
And you chose this one as well, so I have a feeling it was his. Mine's Cincinnati.
That's what I said.
Because
even when I looked at it again,
times they played the Bengals, they're coming off a mini bye.
That's exactly what I said. Yep, because they have post Thursday night football, then they play Cincinnati, and then post Wednesday Christmas Day they have Cincinnati the following.
Even if they play that game on a Saturday because it's TBD, it's still going to be the same amount of break.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of that Wednesday game. Yeah.
Bryan, do you agree or disagree?
I agree, but right now, and a lot of people think that November 21st is a trap game because it's Thursday night in Cleveland. They don't do well Thursday nights in Cleveland. I get that. I actually think that they can sweep the Browns right now. I think the Browns, I don't care that Jameis Winston's in there and makes them a better team. I still think they're a dumpster fire.
It's a one-game sample.
Yeah. He got so lucky last week. If you watch that Ravens-Browns game, goodness gracious, at least 3 interceptions Winston threw that were just blatant drops by the Ravens. None more egregious than Kyle Hamilton's at the end of the game. Anyways.
So who had more drops, the Ravens defense or the Ravens offense?
Just wait till Deontay Johnson
That's
starts.
what I said this morning. I'm like, yeah, they're having all these drop problems with wide receiver. So what's their answer? Deontay Johnson.
Let's go get Drops McGee out there. All right.
Drops McGee. That makes the quote book.
Is that one up for a potty now?
Yes. Oh, trust me, guys. You're going to rue this day because we're going to have meetings now for the off season when we have the potty awards and everybody has to send in their clips.
Hey, Bryan, are you doing a bye week?
Yes, I am.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, 3, 2, 1, and go.
So actually, there was a time where the Steelers had a bye, and it was not too long ago where they jumped from third to first place without even playing a game. Now, last week we celebrated when two major players in the division lost, and Cleveland won, but they're still losers, so it doesn't matter. So it felt like Cleveland helped do the Steelers a favor, which they did by beating the Baltimore Ravens. So what happened in 2018 when the Steelers were in third place going into it? And this is interesting. I was reading an article. For those keeping track, it means that 2.2% of the time since the AFC North existed, and this is when this article was written right after this happened, 2.2% of the time, a team jumps from third to first. Why did that happen? Well, the Steelers were on the bye, the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns in overtime all lost. All three of them lost. The Steelers jumped up. They were 3-2-1 at that point, and they went from third to first just like that. When asked in the locker room how hard it was this week to get to first place, well, a certain player for the Steelers, Marquise Pouncey, said, "Oh man, it took a lot of hard work." And that article was written by one Dave Schofield.
Good job, right at the buzzer. There you go. That was Dave's rookie year, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2018.
His rookie year,
rookie of the year
on the beat. So, all right, stuff. Yeah, I forgot all about that. Now that jogs the memory for sure. Dave, I'm sure you have trivia.
Oh yes, I have trivia. Now I just have to find it here again real quick between my paper and my spreadsheet. I had to get a great handy dandy spreadsheet. What's today?
Today's 31st of October.
How many times do you think the Steelers have played games on Halloween?
At least once, because they beat the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
I was there
20 years ago.
2010, they played and lost to the Saints on Sunday Night Football.
He got hosed in that game too.
Yes. Heath Miller got hosed, I think. Or did Heath Miller fumble? Or something with Heath Miller happened.
Yeah.
They've been hosed.
If you want to look at it all, there's 10 in all going back to the 30s. Okay. But they've won 4 of the last 5. And I think you guys are going to know the answer to this one. One time in there, they played on Halloween in back-to-back seasons. Do you know what seasons those are?
That's where Bryan's brain goes into hyperdrive.
Is this the Super Bowl era, Dave? Is this?
Yes.
Back-to-back on Halloween.
Meaning back-to-back years.
Back-to-back years. So obviously it was a Monday Night Football game.
One of them. Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and say, for some reason, I think they might have played in 84 on Halloween against the Saints. No, they would have won that. Because they lost that game, and that was in 84. It was in late October. I don't know the answer, Dave.
I'll give you guys a hint. You already mentioned one of the games.
So it was 2009 and 2010, or 2010 and 2011. It was, if it was 2011, was that the Patriots? Was that when they beat the Patriots on, no, they beat the Patriots on 2004, in 2004, because I was there. 2004 and 2005, they played Monday Night Football against the Ravens, I think.
That would be correct. You got there eventually. They beat New England at home in 2004 on Halloween. That was 34-20. Then in 2005, they were at home against Baltimore and they won 20-19. You were talking about the 80s. The Steelers actually went almost 30 years without playing a game on Halloween. They went 28 seasons from 1976 through 2004
Wow.
without playing on Halloween. And you're like, how in the world did they do that? Well, there was 3 years in there where Halloween fell on a Sunday when you would assume games to be played. One of those was 1982. Why didn't they play on the Halloween in 1982, Brian?
Strike.
Thank you very much. Another one was 1993, where they had their second bye of the season, back when they actually had 2 byes in the season. And the other one was in 1999 when they also had a bye week during that season.
Wow, that's good stuff.
So, sorry, Brian, I looked it up because it was driving me nuts. In 2010, the game in New Orleans where they got screwed was James Harrison got called for a bogus roughing the passer call on Drew Brees. The Steelers were trailing 13-10 in the game, and this was in the fourth quarter. And facing a 2nd and 9, Drew Brees passed short right to Henderson. And then penalty, James Harrison roughing the passer 15 yards. They go down to score. They make the lead 20-10. The next drive, Pittsburgh Steelers passes intercepted. Final score 20-10.
Yeah.
And then it was that 2010? So when was it that Joe Hayden, the phantom pass interference call? Was that 2018?
Yeah, that was 18 because that's when Antonio Brown had something to say about Juju's fumble. And
right.
Next thing you know, he wasn't. I think 2 weeks later, he was AWOL.
Yeah. That was Brian's talking about another New Orleans game.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you guys know the most? Yeah. Did you guys know the most recent game that the Steelers have played on Halloween?
Was it
2010?
No, they have since 2010.
No, I don't.
No, I can't.
They actually did in 2021. They won in Cleveland 15-10.
Oh,
wasn't that the Pat Frere or not that Pat Frere?
2021.
Was that the Boswell fake
concussion?
Goal,
they couldn't go for the extra point.
I'd say Pat Freiermuth because Pat Freiermuth got a touchdown on 4th down because they didn't kick a field goal. Was it that? Was that
yeah,
game?
Yeah. So. Boswell got hurt and on the fake. Yeah,
actually helped them win the game by not having Boswell. Because they probably would have settled for field goals.
That was a fun post-game show.
Yeah,
they won, but we were answering a lot of questions.
Yes, we were. All right, let's do some felt up final thoughts here. Brian, I'll let you go first.
All right, it's Halloween, and that has nothing to do with my final thoughts. But just be safe out there, be fun out there, just be a kid, and enjoy every opportunity you get. Like, enjoy this bye week. I hate the bye. I absolutely do. But one thing that I'm enjoying the most about this bye, it's a bye without too many questions. Because how many times, and I think I said this last week, but how many times do we say at the bye, wow, the bye came at the right time. The Steelers need it more than ever. Now, instead of having to go ahead and heal up, the Steelers have a chance to load up and, make those decisions, and full with gadgets, full with tricks and treats, full with all those things right now. And we talked about that earlier when we were talking about Justin Fields and all these different things. For tricks and for treats, the Steelers have the right guy, and that's Arthur Smith.
All right. Dave, time for your felt up final thoughts.
Well, I guess I'll just have to feel some candy going into my belly later. I'm sure that I'll be doing that. Yeah, I remember back in May telling my wife, hey, here's the bye week. If you want to play in something, want to play on the weekend or whatever, oh, well, that's Halloween. Okay, never mind. But I don't know about you all. Some people, they plan trips around the bye week. And if you did that, that's great for you. If you didn't, got some interesting matchups to watch on Sunday. Lots of AFC North action. I love the fact that there's no divisional games, so that everyone has a chance to lose. But unfortunately, that means everyone has a chance to win as well. But it would be really nice if the Raiders could Bryan's other team could really, well, his first team, since this is his second, could
Sure.
come through and beat all the other AFC North teams other than the Steelers. That would be really neat. Who would have thought it would have been a matchup of 5-3 teams with Denver going to Baltimore at this stage? I wouldn't have pegged, either one of those teams to have that record necessarily, because you didn't expect Baltimore to be 5-3 going into last week, and the Broncos to be able to turn around the way that they did. And hopefully, the Chargers can get it done in Cleveland. We'll see what's going on there to feed that out. But that's really all you have to look forward to football-wise this weekend, Steelers fans. Enjoy the time off, because guess what? It's going to be a grind. Yeah, there's a couple mini buys in there that'll throw stuff off a little bit. But with every mini buy, that means you've got 2 rushed weeks to go along with it. Technically 3 when you talk about Sunday to Saturday to Wednesday. Throwing that one in there as well. So we'll be here bringing it all for you. Looking forward to this big stretch run. And next week, we'll come back talking about a game.
That's right. Fantastic stuff, guys. I ask everyone out there that's either watching or listening to check out our audio-only platform. Go to wherever you get your podcasts and search Steel Curtain Network or just Steelers, and we'll be an option there for sure. And make sure you check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. Again, that's steelcurtainnetwork.com. Really proud of that website. We are getting a facelift at some time in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. But that does it for this week's Steelers preview. Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
I'll see you next week.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.